Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I have another Silmarillion Total War battle for you. Nice little 2v2 on, I think this is our Dimbar map. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So the first army we're going to have a look at today is going to be the Horrors of Dungortheb. They're going to be teaming up with the realm of Doriath, which is a bit of an odd pairing, to say the least. But they are neighbors, so maybe they've decided to cooperate for once. Across the field, we've got, I believe this is the Paladin and the Avari, so two of the kind of guerrilla jungler factions against a little bit more of a rush and a little bit of skirmish as well, potentially. You could generally play Dungortheb in two main ways, mostly as like a monster mash rush and a more of a skirmish focus faction, sort of a orcish Assyrian, I guess, in some ways, but I don't think that's what we have here today. Nan is going to be played by Panthan. He's got some Karengui Gore Swarm, these weird, pardon me, shambling horrors. They are able to hide everywhere. As you can see, they're hiding in this grass. And their lock morale don't really do a ton of damage, but they do have, in the new overhaul, they do have armor piercing. Not a lot of damage, but they do really shine when it comes to cavalry. That being said, it's kind of hard to catch cavalry, as they do shamble along on those 8 horrifying legs. But it doesn't give them quite enough speed. More legs, not necessarily more speed, and they're not really able to catch most cavalry, maybe some of the heavier units, heavier lancers and so forth. But really nice ambush unit, and you can use it to kind of cover flanks and surprise people in various ways, because Nan is very, very much a horde faction, so it's easy to miss the conspicuous absence of a couple of units of Karengui Swarm. Anyway, moving on now. We have some Flesh Terrors here, just a basic light infantry unit. They've got really good damage, especially for their tier and their unit size. I think they've got like 9 damage, so they're kind of pushing that like Noldor line unit from, say, Gondolin damage value. I'm thinking of the House of the Harp in particular. But they have very, very poor defense. They've got a decent little shield there. They've got 6 shield, but they've actually only got 1 armor. We do need to update the model here a little bit. To reflect the fact that they are basically unarmored. They're able to rout now in this patch, which is, you know, unfortunate for them, but there's so many of them, and they actually have really good morale. I think they've got like 12 or 14 morale, which is quite high, especially for orcs of a low tier. Most of them tend to sit around like 8 or 9. So that's very, very high for them. A nice little meat shield that you can use to just kind of get in the way, or, as this player here has opted to do, hide the new Berserker units. So we've got the Dusomenuthan Trollbloods. They are one of the tankier Berserkers in the game. They've got, I think, an extra hit point, which might even put them above or equal to the Paladin Berserkers. They do a ton of damage, but they are a little bit more expensive, and I think a little bit smaller than some of the other Berserker units as well. Yeah, clocking in at about 30. I think that actually puts them below the Paladin Berserker, so they might have a bit more HP per model, but the Paladin units do have more models, so that is a kind of key difference there between those two units. And it's looking like I see 2, potentially. Yes? Yep, 2 units of Trollbloods hiding in there, which makes them very scary. It's super easy to miss this, especially when you have your banners on, because you'll get extra little banners and things like that for experience chevrons and other upgrades, things like that. So it can be very easy to miss that in the shuffle. So that's a pretty clever thing to do. And if they manage to crash into the Paladin lines, they can do a lot of damage unless they're brought low by missiles or even other berserkers. Anyway, got some Karengui Broodmother hanging out here in the back, a model that we have obviously borrowed from the Botet spiders. Really cool, really scary. I believe they actually have changed in one particular way in the overhaul that is quite significant. Their javelins have gone from harassment javelins, so the long-range, high in-flight speed, etc., to the hunter javelins, so a little bit of extra anti-armor there. And you're going to see a lot of shifts like that once the release finally comes out, which will hopefully be very, very soon. I'm just working on some final things right now. A few things need to be tested for Valinor, and then they are good to go. But anyway, so you're going to see a lot of shifts like that in the overhaul, because there's a lot more armor. Elephants, in particular, have also gone up in armor, so they're not quite as hit or miss. They are a little bit more generally useful, which certainly comes with its own challenges, and some people may like that, some people may hate it. But you do have options like this, like some of the Mithram cavalry as well. They've got some hunter javelins instead of harassment, things like that. So yeah, a little bit more anti-armor damage on them. Out in the back here, we've got some Karangwi Blood Gorgers. This is the melee cavalry. Their drawback is that they are quite slow, but if they get into anything, especially if they get off charges, they can be an extremely potent unit. So something you certainly want to watch out for, and try and screen for if you can, because most people will do just about anything that they can in order to keep these guys away from their infantry, which they will munch with great glee. We have some Dusomnuthan Skull Splitters here. They are a light infantry axe thrower. They've also got a ton of charge damage. Nan in general has like quite inflated damage values on their orcs. You're going to find that across the faction. But of course they pay for that with very, very low, almost non-existent, in this guy's case, defensive values. So a bit of a trade-off there. And a fun little tidbit. The Skull Splitters, I got the name from an old World of Warcraft NPC that you fight in Stranglethorn Valley. That'd be the Skull Splitter tribe that throw axes at you and stuff. So, yeah, the more you know. Over here, we've got a couple of the Dusomnuthan Predators. These are harassment javelins. There's quite a lot of them, and because of their smaller unit size, they actually have a bit higher damage than what you would expect from a skirmisher. So that's mostly a product of both the smaller unit size and the buffs that Nan gets to their attack value overall. So they can make an excellent second-line unit. They do maintain those strong morale values as well. I think the infantry are a little bit higher. I think these guys clock in at 12, and the infantry are mostly 14. But they do have the extra damage there. So when you're bringing them in enormous numbers like this, sometimes it's enough to just swarm and completely overwhelm your enemy. I think maybe we've got 3 units of the Skull Splitters here. Moving on now, we have the Karangwi Hunters. Looks like they're going to be hiding in the forest, because of course they are. They are spiders. They are spear cavalry, so they do have some utility against other cavalry units, specifically horsemen. I don't think they have particularly... I think they get general bonuses, except... nothing particularly special against elephants. In any case, they are poison arrows. One thing to note about poison arrows is that our effect was actually not working for a very long time, which is somewhat embarrassing. But it is working now, so you're going to see a lot of units when they get shot by those black trailed arrows, they're going to go down to shaken. That's when that just means that the morale debuff is actually applying properly. So that's fun. Unit here of Karangwi Hunters. Again, a little bit slower than some of your other bow cavalry, but they do have lots of HP. I think they're about 2 or 3 HP apiece. But they are, as are many of the Nan units, comparatively fragile. Moving on over here. Is that a second unit of Blood Gorgers? No way. Oh my god, he's got 2 of them. That's crazy. Very expensive cavalry, so 2 of them. Got some Spider Cab to screen for them. Is that a second Broodmother? Oh my god, it is a second Broodmother. So big monster mash here from Nan. Which means that they're probably going to run right across the field at the Halidin. It's going to be unfortunate for them. Some more Flesh Terrors, I think, are over here. It's got a tremendous amount of Flesh Terrors. You can bring, I think, about 6 units of them total. And as far as I can see, that's going to be it for Nan Dungortheb, unless he's got an Abomination, which really does live up to its name with its broken UVs. I really have no idea how to fix that. So if you're out there and you see it, and you know how to fix this, it's like a converter problem, please get in contact with me, because I'm at my wit's end trying to get that fixed. Anyway, Guarded Realm of Doriath being played by Stuart. I think you guys probably know everything about Doriath at this point, but for those who are new, I will go over them in brief. So we have the Marksman of Region here. Not a lot of damage on those bows, but they have gone up in size, which is always nice. Many Doriath fans, I'm sure, are very pleased with that. And the projectile, of course, has this high mass, so it's extremely disruptive. I think we've seen it in a few battles already, just how badly they can disrupt enemy ranged units, skirmishers, and especially now that there are some smaller units on the field, especially for Valinor, they can fulfill a really important role of pinning down the new Maiar, which is very sad for Valinor. But those new Maiar have some very, very potent abilities, which perhaps I'll talk about in another video. In any case, behind them we have the Rangers of the Girdle. They're going to have poison arrows. They are quite small, and that's to stop Doriath from becoming a ranged powerhouse, so they are very limited by size and the number of units like this that you could bring in terms of their ranged combat in any case. So we have some shield bearers here of Region. They're going to be with armor upgrades, I believe, and you're probably going to see them immediately stuck into shield wall. It's a very popular thing for people to do nowadays. Behind them, Axemen of the Girdle with their fabulous new reskins by Stewart of Dale. They're basically the same unit. They are light infantry. With the overhaul, obviously they get faster, especially having axes and being light infantry. They're looking at like a lot of extra speed, so these guys can zoom across the battlefield, toss those axes, and then get stuck in melee. One thing to note, however, is that unlike your heavy infantry and other conventional combat units that are a bit more suited, perhaps, to fighting on the front line, is that a lot of your light infantry units do not have the same morale traits. They actually have normal instead of disciplined. So that can affect them in a few ways, especially when a general dies. It does also make them a bit more susceptible to morale shocks. So yeah, that's one of the big kind of counters to light infantry spam, is that they're just not as good at holding the line, and of course, being light infantry, a bit more vulnerable to bowmen. Out here, we've got some Outriders of the Girdle. Ooh, sneaky. A little unit here of Hidden Lancers. They're extremely fast, hit hard with that AP charge, and then they get out before you can really do anything about it unless you've got some cavalry to kind of cover your backline and to hunt them down. They're a little bit weak to bow cavalry once they're out and about, but I don't know if there's a ton of bow cavalry. I mean, Haladin has some, but they're going to have their hands full, so we'll see what kind of value you can get off of them. Over here, Axe Guard of Region, heavy axe infantry. Like many other axe units, they're a little bit quicker than their non-axe wielding counterparts, which is always fun. I think he's got maybe 1, 2, 3 units of them, so they're forming basically the core. Then he's got some Spearhost of the Girdle out front. They still have their poison jabbies, which is lots of fun. Except these are precursor javelins, which are a different kind of javelin from the other two that we have. I know this is very confusing. Please try to follow along. So precursor javelins, just a little bit extra damage. Not really anything in particular. They're generally capped at 10 damage and 2 ammo and 90 range pretty well, I think, exclusively across the entire range of precursor javelins that exist in the mod. So that's one of the fun ways that you can kind of keep things straight, is that there are, you know, range and damage and is it armor piercing, is it not, that are common throughout all the types of javelins, so that once you're familiar with it, at a glance, you just look at them and you're like, okay, that's what that is. Moving on now. More Spearhost of the Girdle. In the back here we have the Doriath and Mablung with their terrifying helmets with the axe blade on the end of it. You really wouldn't want to take a headbutt from that. Heavy infantry, of course, obviously. Armor piercing, as two-handed maces now are. It's pretty well I think it's the only two-handed, outside of halberds, of course, but the only like conventional like shock unit that has AP anymore. So that's pretty important. Has a lot of implications for the uses of heavy infantry and, of course, monsters, as I mentioned earlier. But it does make these units extremely valuable and very, very scary against the right targets, for sure. We got some Spearhost of the Girdle in the back. This is the detachment version, so they are smaller, and instead of precursors, they have harassment javelins, which is why I felt the need to mention the precursors earlier. Warriors of Region over here, looking like they've got their full complement of armor upgrades. 2 units of them. They hit like trains. I think they've got like 22 base damage and like 30 charge. It's not armor piercing, so it doesn't hit quite as hard against certain armored targets, but against light units, these guys will absolutely tear things up. Got some Mounted Company of Region here as well, 2 units of, and that is going to do for team number 1. I'm going to go ahead and pop things into fast forward here. Looks like he's got another detachment of the shield bearers as well. So a nicely well-rounded, very balanced army, which is generally what I find Stu likes to play. I'm sure he'll be out there in the comment section. He can correct me on that, but my observation is that he does like to play these more balanced armies and things like that. So a couple of those units being deployed out there in this little hidden area, which is fun. So potentially some surprises across the way there. Go ahead and keep fast forwarding that. This is going to be a very quick match. If you can, we're at like 2,500 and we haven't even had the other side deploy yet. So I think that's a very good sign that it's going to be a big rush on the part of Stu and his ally Panthan. All right, let's go ahead and pause it there, and we'll see what we can see of the Avari. I think Tundra's Fox probably has a huge amount of things hidden in here, so we'll just kind of pick those out as they move through. But good news for you, we get through this intro in hopefully less than half an hour this time around. Got Battle Wards and the First Refusers. Oh, I'm so excited to see the First Refusers today. We'll actually get to see that projectile in action. Grandfather as well. From what I recall of this, he's actually got a second Grandfather hidden around here somewhere. But that's pretty well all that we can see from the Avari at the moment. So let's move on to our other ambush faction here. And that's going to be, oh, I thought it was the Halidin, but actually it's Cuarthol. What do you know? We got some scouts of the two captains here. These are the missile cavalry. I think they're also like a melee cavalry hybrid. So they do have a few roles that they can fill on the battlefield. They're also very, very quick, susceptible to arrows, and just generally quite fragile, being light infantry. Over here we have the Dreadhelms, which are actually not medium infantry. I have to update that. They, as of this version, they have heavy infantry stats, penalties, in terrain, whatever. But they just have that little moniker that's left over. That's a bit of an oops on my part. Dreadhelms, they've got flash bombs, which can be temporarily disorienting for units that get hit by them. They do have a little stagger effect that it puts onto the ground, so it'll stop things in their tracks. It gives the Cuarthol range contingent, which is generally very, very expansive and very scary, a little bit of extra time to do their work, or can potentially just interrupt charging units and stop them from getting their charge off. So it's a nice little utility spell. And I think he's got probably 2, 3, maybe. Yeah. Looks like 2. He's also got 2 units of the old house of Ransom. They're sort of a medium infantry archer hybrid. They have armor-piercing arrows and poison, so that's fun. It's the only archer in the game that really combines those 2 traits. Guardsmen of the 2 captains here, just a regular old spear unit. Another unit there of the old company, some more guardsmen, and obviously a bunch of hidden units here, and we're going to see that as the game progresses. Rangers of the 2 captains, this I think is their mid-tier archer, so poison arrows. They've got swords, so they've got decent enough melee defense. They can stand up to charges and things like that. And then in behind them we have huntsmen of the 2 captains, so this is it's their only javelin unit, I think, and it's also a detachment. But it does have hunter javelins, so it gives them a little bit of extra AP punch, which is always needed, especially in the current meta. And I'm sure that there's more hidden stuff here, probably a ton of archers. Let's see how they do against this, because I'm very positive that this is just going to be a big rush. That Panthan, once they have a chance to kind of assess things, he's just gonna motor forward into the other guy. Yep, here we go. General advance there from the hordes of Dungortheb. Skull Splitters backing up a front line of Flesh Tearers. They're going to be easy prey for some of the Lancers if they are hidden here. We might see the Detachment Lancer, who have a little bit of a different layout, or loadout, that's the word I'm thinking, from the other units. And they've got some smoke bombs, which are pretty cool. So Farathier Beleg over here. Oh, nasty. Some poison archers. These are also one of the only 2-handed axes that has retained armor piercing. So they're picking on the Karangli Bloodgorgers. I mean, the Bloodgorgers will certainly cripple a unit in a charge, but if they stick around here for any long period of time, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. The armor piercing will kick in, and yeah, it's just going to be unfortunate. So you can see that heavy infantry sort of armor value really being at play here, despite the fact these guys don't have a shield. These archers are not going to be able to penetrate that armor particularly well. I mean, with mass fire like this, it might be enough. You see one of them go down there. They're so funky and awkward when they shamble along. Oh, here we go. Oh, but they do get a counter charge there. Didn't really connect all that well. And that counter charge there was enough to really do a number on these guys. Now they're getting swarmed. I don't think Panthan's going to see much use out of this unit, unfortunately. It's a bit of a shame that charge wasn't able to do a little bit more. They weren't able to kind of push deeper into that unit, but, you know, sometimes it happens. Being able to AI being what it is, and down go the Bloodgorgers there. But they have taken, like, 30 of these Farathier Beleg with them, and that's not on an anemic charge. So that's, you know, I think that's pretty impressive. Meanwhile, over here, let's go ahead and turn it down a little bit because we are starting to miss some stuff. Guardsmen of the 2 captains trying to hold back the Flesh Tearers. They're going to get cut to absolute pieces. And that Dungortheb horde is just, they're just able to get everywhere in here. So we've got some throwing axes. I think the Raiders of Cuarthol. Looks like they've already used, yeah, based on the numbers remaining in that unit, looks like they've already used their ammunition. So they're going to get in there and try and plug the gap. Dungortheb inevitably and aggressively pushing forward. Oh, some of those Troll Bloods, though, getting absolutely destroyed by the Huntsman in the back. Dreadhelm's now falling backwards. We've got some Huntsmen of the 2 captains. And, ooh, even another grandfather over here. Really giving those Trollbloods the business. But the guardsmen of the two captains here faltering on the front line. And then Dungortheb's rush, so far, doing pretty well for them. Meanwhile, over here, oh my god, the trees are alive. And they are speaking in tongues of hatred. Thorn and Ancients of Doriath here. We've got some Thorncasters as well. This is a harassment javelin unit with a little bit of extra oomph. We've got the Branch Stalkers, who have smoke bombs, and it looks like at least 2 units here of these guys coming out, and 1, 2, 3 units of Thorncasters at the very least. Second company of Branch Stalkers, maybe even a third. That's a lot of smoke. Of course, they were hidden. I'm sure that this, given that he's got 2 grandfathers, you can see the second one over there, I'm sure that this has to be all of his army. And so now Stu is moving over there at the same time that the Avari are kind of moving out, and we're going to see things go in a very, very pear-shaped direction, I think, for potentially Stu here. That's a big flank coming in on the Doriath side of things, so hopefully he's going to be able to be on top of it. And some of the other big beasties, basically this is just a screen almost for the big beasties to get over here and try and assist his ally Cuarthol, who's not having a good time right now. Dreadhelms being engaged by Dusmanuth and Flesh Tears. They've taken a decent amount of damage. Some of those, yeah, you can see that poison effect at work there. These Dusmanuth and Flesh Tears getting shot in the back by their own buddies with that poison arrow. That might be enough to rout them off the field here. Skull Splitters moving forward, trying to get some cheeky shots. And over here, this wing is just absolutely lost. Raiders of Cuarthol and other Cuarthol units just running in every direction. Old Company of the House of Ransom going to be the only ones left to kind of hold the line here. Farathier Beleg potentially surrounded. Oh yeah, big cheeky charge there from those Lancers. Are they actually going to be able to get in there and deal the damage though? Oh, it doesn't look like it, but it does at the very least turn them around. I'm pretty sure those Outriders are going to be able to disengage. Scouts of the two captain, those melee units over here, are about to... oh no, they stopped their charge. AI, Medieval 2 AI at its finest here. Skull Splitters, this would be a great target for the Skull Splitters if they still have ammunition. But there's a window here to really deal a death blow to those Farathier Beleg that I think is rapidly closing. More scouts of the two captains hanging out here, but for the most part, I think this wing is pretty well gone, although some of these units are beginning to rally, so Rex might be able to throw them back into the fight. Over in the back here, these Dreadhelms just inundated, and there's actually Berserkers in there, so they're not long for this world. Flesh Terriers just kind of hanging out. It's a lot of movie pieces to micro, so Panthen's having a great time. 1, 2, 3 units of those Predators opening up on the Dreadhelms here. They're going to do a decent amount of damage, and lots of additional support coming in as well. Mount Company of Region trying to get some cheeky charges on Thorn and Ancients. They are technically infantry, so much like trolls, you can kill them off the charge with cavalry if you are lucky. I love watching them shamble around. Oh, that's adorable. I love this unit so much. They're pretty well going to bowl right through these guys. We've seen troll units do that time and time again. Karangui Hunters and those melee cavalry now being engaged by the Thorn and Ancients. How's Stu doing up here? Oh, yeah. The Thorncasters, one thing to note about the Thorncasters is that they actually have maces now. So they do have some armor piercing. I really want to know, I don't want to miss an opportunity here to see the first refusers in action. Oh, these poor Branch Stalkers getting picked on by those Doriath range units. Yeah, it's a unit that you really want to shoot as soon as it comes out. Yeah, those smoke bombs at play here. A little bit of reinforcements from Stu that seem to be routing. The Avari, I think, are just going to bounce off these guys. And perhaps not the best use of the smoke. You want to use it to set up cavalry charges, or you want to use it to, screen an approach, throw like a big visual barrier between your opponent who has to take a little bit longer to figure out what you're doing, or to just stop an enemy army's advance. So I don't really know what the point of using them in this fashion is, but it is a bit of a tricky thing to kind of figure out. The Avari taking the fight to the Axemen of the Girdle with those Thorn Ancients. Don't know how well that's going to go. Oh, yes, we have it over here. Damn, I missed it. Oh, it's so easy to do in the chaos of battle. Let's see if we're going to get another one of these. with the first refusers, I think they might be inundated and just swamped by cat. People tend to jump on them as soon as they see them. Yes! Yes! Killing friend and foe alike. You can see what spending time in this green poisonous cloud will do to you. Oh. Yep, there they are. First refusers opening up on these guys. And the Doriath, unfortunately, are getting stuck in that cloud, and you're going to see more and more of them. Yeah, you can see it ramping up there. This is the effect that I talked about in some previous videos, and it's going to start to bring down some of these important Doriath units, which is very unfortunate. They're a little bit under half strength, actually. And they can take these guys on their own, but not when those first refusers keep insisting on their death. So that's pretty cool. Another few models definitely went down there from the fallout of that green gas. And that's actually Thingol. That's going to be Steward's general unit. So this is a bit of a pickle for him. And there's not really a ton that he can throw in there to make it better. So the branch stalkers here getting picked on by those Doriath units. Yeah, the smoke bombs not really used to the greatest effect in the Avari. I think they're going to lose this general engagement, but we'll see. We'll see what happens over here. So the Avari doing their best to kind of stem the tide here. Cuarthol trying to maybe reform. How are things going over here? Broodmothers have come in, but it looks like they've taken a decent amount of damage, possibly from the scouts. Raiders of Cuarthol and the old company. It looks like they've managed to just throw back Dungortheb almost completely, with the exception of the Broodmothers who are still hanging out here. But once the Farathier Belleg get into them, then that's going to be all she wrote. They can do a lot of damage very quickly to those armored units. Some Dungortheb units are reforming behind the lines here, but let's have a look at that percentage. So about a 5% lead for Team 1. We'll see if they can maintain that. Karangri Broodmother is getting shot here by some of the Farathier Belleg. Probably that'd be the best thing to shoot at them. Or never mind, you want to shoot them with the old company of Ransom, of course, because they have the armor-piercing arrows. Yeah, destruction here, eh? It's just absolute chaos. Now, the Predator's unsupported. There's a little bit of cav here. They're going to have a hard time dragging down the Grandfathers. They can certainly do it over time, but there's lots of extra support here, and I think these isolated units are going to have a very difficult time staying in this fight for any meaningful amount of time. Dreadhelms over here, still kind of just hanging out, I guess. Huntsman of the two captains, chasing down some of the Dusmanuth and Flesh Terrors, and Doriath trying to come over here and help out their ally a little bit. Panthan's army seemingly in shambles, though he does have some of the important pieces left. And Stu, of course, is doing extremely well here against the Avari. You can see the Avari beginning to kind of break and run here. Stu's starting to envelop them. Ooh, a nice little cheeky shot there with those harassment jabs. And the branch stalkers are going to run smack into 2 units of Doriath infantry. Those warriors of Region are going to absolutely devastate them here. Go ahead and we'll turn it up a little bit. Yeah, they're not going to be long for this world. Managed to kill 1 or 2 of them, but yeah, big strike across 2 units like that, it's a bad place to be. Doriath definitively having won this fight against the Avari, now just mopping things up. Oh, that's smoke though. And that, you can see what I mean, like it does kind of obscure things a little bit, and you're not really sure, you know, what's happening. You gotta kind of get in there and spend a little bit more time. So it's great for obfuscation, things like that, as smoke generally is. More Avari units just holding up Stu's reserves here, doing whatever they can to just make this a chaotic kind of drag down brawl, and you know, maybe that's something they can come out on top of a lot of these light infantry in. Marksmen of Region, other things like that over here. Are fighting first refusers and some of the Thorn Ancients. In the back, what do we have here? Raiders of Cuarthol getting absolutely flattened by the Mounted Company. And they're going to take this opportunity to just charge into the back of the Dreadhelms. Dreadhelms are going to see it, turn around, as are the rest of that infantry there. But it is still going to hurt. The Mounted Company will take some minor losses in return. Karangri Broodmother is running absolutely rampant here. Now, it looks like maybe Dungortheb... well, you know, I say that, these are actually routing units, not units being given independent commands. Looks like the Avari and their ally have managed to come out on top here. There's still a lot of really scary Cuarthol infantry left, especially those Farathier Belleg. and the old company of the House of Ransom, and a few more rangers and things like that over here. This unit of Karengi Broodmother is looking like it's on its last legs, because it has 8 legs. Anyway, yeah, almost dead, but these guys have managed to rejoin the Doriath horde, so this is still a very formidable fighting force. So Team 1 definitely still in this game. Team 2 not looking awful, but they are certainly quite far behind here. We're looking at about an 8 or so percentage lead for Team 1 over Team 2. But if the Avari can pull out everything, bring it back together with what's left of Cuarthol, maybe this is a fight that they can ultimately pull out. Oh, little grandfather there, cheeky shot into those warriors of Region. You can actually fire while in combat with elephants. I'm not sure many people know that. As long as you're not firing at what's in melee with you and it's a sufficient distance away, this can be a very, very good tactic. So you can see the Thornton Ancients here with their high armor. Not going to take a ton of damage from that, but these smaller little models, they certainly will. So it's very hard to lock down those units. The only thing you can really do is just try and keep them moving. And the best way to do that is with armor-piercing units, if you have them available. Let's see if he gets one more shot off here. I don't think he's too long for this world. Yeah, one more little cheeky shot there. Now, these guys aren't dead. I'm sure someone out there is looking at this and thinking, how on earth is that reasonable? Most of them are going to get back up. It's not a lot of damage. It's really destructive when you can like fire into big blobs like this. And they are a little bit blobbed up here, trying to fight some pretty ferocious units from the other side. So those Avari, and in tandem with their ally having enough infantry left to kind of force things to be kind of a bit blobby, this is a great way to punish that. So some really nice teamwork here. Mounted Company is still picking on whatever they can get their hands on here. There's not a whole lot. And if they can get a nice cheeky charge here. Oh! I think this might be the end of the Mounted Company. But it does pull those Farathir Belli out of melee. And make them turn their backs to the enemy, which is excellent. So they've gone from basically winning that fight to now quite definitively losing it. The Avari punishing hard, but there's only so much to be done here. These guys have enough damage, I think, to kind of chop through the armor. So we'll see if they're able to take them down in time. But they're closing that gap quite a lot there, using those tactics, which I think is great. I think it's great to see people like working together like this and overcoming a very, very difficult challenge in some creative ways. That being said, I don't think the grandfather has a lot left to really give here. There are a few. Oh, look at this. We have some routing here, potentially. Oh, that's the Axemen from before. I think we're going to see a lot of these units reform and then slowly make their way back to the fight. But the Thornton Ancients here, not doing too bad. And now this guy's getting pummeled. This grandfather's going to start running out of ammunition soon, and that's going to be where the tide turns here, because I think Team 1, they've got enough left over from Stu. They've got enough momentum, and of course, look at this. They've got broodmothers, right? They've got their own elephants here who can be very, very troublesome, and that the grandfathers really can't just beat in 1v1. Unless, of course, the old company are allowed to fire at them forever, in which case those broodmothers may start to fall away very quickly. But a big breakthrough here. Smashing what's left of quite a lot of Cuarthol infantry, and now those units should be able to make their way up the hill and engage the old company and take some of the pressure off those cranky broodmothers. So now they could be thrown, say, into the fray over here, charge into the rear of some of these old company, for example, and I don't think they would stand and fight for very long. Oh, remains of the Donath! 3 of them! A whole hot 3 of them now in the fray. Oh, another shot there. What did they manage to hit? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is there some Doriath infantry in there? Oh yeah, there's some spearmen. They'll hold the line and fight forever. And now that these Donath are in here, it should be enough, I think, to drag this grandfather down pretty quickly. They do a lot of damage, as I said. Dreadhelms over here, just hanging out, trying to hold the line. Only 10 of them left. And Doriath holding on by a bit of a thread here. They've really been pummeled, eh? That light infantry from the house of, or from the old company of the House of Ransom and Cuarthol generally doing pretty well. Oh, some Karangi hunters. That's a big deal. Now would be a good time for some cheeky rear charges and things like that. They can do a decent amount of damage off the charge, so Panthan could get in there and turn this around very, very quickly, or go and harass some of these other units that are up here. Oh, the Grandfather did go down. What do you know? So one of the Grandfathers has been toasted, and the other one is fighting against two-handed Axemen over here. So let's see how long he's going to be able to hold that line for. There's some Javies nearby as well. They do have armor piercing. It's not going to be huge. It's only like 2 or 3 damage. And I think a lot of the other Cuarthol infantry has been rounded up a little bit. So rounded up and basically destroyed. More Doriath troops moving over here to keep Team 2's forces separated, because the last thing you want is for them to be able to join together right now. No more AP arrows, so it looks like those Broodmothers are going to just be able to run around and do whatever they want. Rangers are the 2 captains, freshly out of ammunition. And what do we got here? 90 to 89. Still pretty close, considering there was an 8% or so lead on the other side. The Spiders getting in there, that should be enough, I think, to put an end to the Farathyr Beleg. Close enough. Close enough indeed. Doriath still is their general. If they lost their general, that'd be very bad for morale at this point. I think the Grandfather's probably going after them. Oh yeah, nobody ever likes this. This is one of those weird quirks of AI in Medieval 2, where your infantry units will get stuck in this loop, and damage on charges for infantry is only applied at the end of this animation. So once this running around stops, then they'll actually deal damage to this damned Grandfather. But until they stop, they don't actually deal damage. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to stop it. Those 3 Donath now should be enough. Down goes the Grandfather. Yes, indeed. Just in time for those Thorninations to arrive and not be able to do anything. Unfortunate. Looks like these guys have basically been left on their own, I think, from the Avari. Like, this is really all that they've got left. Cuarthol still has a few troops scattered hither and thither, but Rangers are the 2 captains, not much left for them. Warriors of Region doing just fine over here against the old company of the House of Ransom. There's some shield bearers in there as well. Crangly Hunters are nearby, and they should be able to just either avoid these guys or get right into the rear of the old company, which is going to make them turn around, and that's going to be bad news. Bears for them is going to make things easier a little bit on that Doriath infantry. And I think this is going to be it. You can actually see Beleg himself leading the unit, hanging out right there. Oh, what do you know? There's actually another fight over here that I didn't see. Rangers are the 2 captains getting charged down. 2% difference here between those guys. Crangly Hunters pulling out these Rangers on the verge of collapse. Broodmothers now making their way over here. Still 4 models left in that unit. They're usually like units of 5, so that's very scary. I would throw them into the old company and put an end to this for sure. Maybe Panthan wants to rout. He sees the situation stable over here, so maybe he wants to get rid of some of these guys. Oh yeah, this is going to be ugly. They're going to get munched in like 2 seconds. Let's take a look. Take it into full speed. Oh. Oh. Instantly routing. There they go. There's another unit of Rangers hanging out over there. They're not going to be long for this world either. Once the... Oh, Broodmothers now. Going after the old company. And they are very sad indeed. And off they go. And so this is going to be pretty solid, I would say. Got about a 5% lead. That's a nice 2v2. Some really interesting and kind of unconventional, I guess, builds and tactics from the other side. 2 of those jungle opponents that are like very ambushy, things like that, that normally don't stand up well, as we saw. The Avari on that hill. They picked a hill to die on, and die they did. They don't stand up very well to these guys in a straight fight, but they took some unconventional builds. They used them well, and it was really cool to see. I think one of the things that maybe killed the Avari and the realm of Cuarthol here was not being able to get Steward's general. If they were able to get Stu's general, this would have been game over. And not really getting a lot of value out of those expensive smoke bomb units. They could be useful, absolutely, against Doriath. I can envision circumstances in which those would be very useful, especially for disrupting a Doriath advance or a charge, because Doriath, one of those factions, much like this particular Nan build, that likes to get into melee and mix things up. That's where they're at their best. So those units brought in mass, I think, could be useful, but I don't think they were really able to do much here. They're just throwing smoke into combat that was already ongoing. Which isn't a super great way to use them. And then they were vulnerable while they did that. They're standing out in the open, getting shot to death in close formation. It happens, but Tundrous Fox, Captain Gervais almost managed to turn that around at the last minute. Really good game from everybody involved. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I will have a couple more coming out, including a siege battle. Don't get too excited. It's a really amazing siege. Flippin' phenomenal. We were moving into the final stage of that, like the final kind of like choke point, and we had a crash. But it's so good and so back and forth that I can't not show it to you. So I'm going to do that, but I am going to preface it here, and I will preface it probably at the end of the last video, and then probably in the introduction of that video, so that nobody feels robbed. There's no illusions that the game doesn't end. Yeah, that's just letting you know. But up until that point, oh my god, it might be one of the best sieges that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of sieges, been around a long time. So yeah, hope you guys are excited for that. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I will see you guys next time.